Hi friends, before we start, I just want to take time out and appreciate every single one of you who leaves comments and likes on my videos. It encourages me a lot to write better stories for you. I have noticed lately YouTube hasn't been pushing my latest videos, but it's fine. I am not going to give up. You can help me by leaving a like and hyping the video. Let's see how that helps, and also, maybe help with a super thanks. Please do not feel obligated. Anyways, thanks so much, and let's get started with the story. Let it be said that wedding planning is supposed to be the happiest time of a person's life. Whoever said that was a liar. That person had never had to choose between ivory and eggshell napkins, while their fiancé played Candy Crush on the toilet. But that's beside the point. Park Jinho was 28 years old, and exactly 47 minutes ago, he had been standing at the altar of the Grand Celestia Hotel ballroom in a custom-fitted navy suit that cost more than his car, waiting for the love of his life to walk down the aisle. His name was Choi Minjun. Emphasis on was, as in was the love of his life, past tense, because that beautiful, dimple-cheeked, doe-eyed man had decided that 47 minutes ago was the perfect time to climb out of the bathroom window of the groom's suite. In his wedding tuxedo, mind you, hop into a taxi, and drive to the airport to reunite with his college ex-boyfriend. Some guy named Kevin who apparently understood him on a spiritual level. Kevin. His name was Kevin. Jinho was left standing at the altar with 300 guests. A 12-tier cake shaped like the Eiffel Tower, Minjun's idea, not his, and his mother, who was already on the phone with her therapist. He's not coming, his best man, Seo Dokyun, whispered to him after minute 15 of the waiting. Dokyun was built like a refrigerator with kind eyes, the sort of guy who could bench press your problems but preferred to talk about them first. He's just nervous, Jinho whispered back, sweat trickling down his temple. Jinho. His coordinator found this in the bathroom. Dokyun handed him a note written on the back of their monogrammed wedding program. Dear Jinho, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I realized last night that my heart still belongs to Kevin. You'll always be my second favorite person. Please enjoy the cake. Love. But not like that anymore. Minjun. P.S. I took the Cartier cufflinks. I hope you understand. Jinho stared at the note. Then he stared at the 300 guests who were starting to murmur like a hive of confused, overdressed bees. Then he stared at the 12-tier Eiffel Tower cake that suddenly looked like it was mocking him. Second favorite person. Minjun had ranked him. He had actually ranked him. In a breakup letter. On their wedding program. It would be nice to report that Jinho handled the situation with grace and dignity. It would be lovely to say he gave a measured speech, thanked everyone for coming, and quietly retired to process his emotions like a well-adjusted adult. Instead, he ate an entire tier of the Eiffel Tower cake by himself while sitting on the altar steps, and when his Aunt Suyin tried to comfort him, he accidentally flung a forkful of buttercream into her wig. So, that was his wedding day. The video went viral, obviously. Some second cousin he'd never met recorded the whole thing. Jinho reading the note, Jinho standing frozen like a Windows computer that had encountered a fatal error, Jinho attacking the cake like it owed him money, and the buttercream wig incident, and posted it to every social media platform known to mankind with the caption, Groom gets dumped at altar, declares war on cake face with tears of joy birthday cake skull. Within 24 hours, he had 4.2 million views and a hashtag. Hashtag cake widow. His mother called him 17 times. He answered on the 18th. Jinho ya, she said. Her voice the particular brand of calm that meant she was one inconvenience away from arson. I want you to know that I love you, I support you, and I have already contacted 3 different shamans to curse Choi Minjun's bloodline. Mom, please don't curse anyone's bloodline. Too late. One of them already started. She says his left knee will never be the same. That's not how. You know what, fine. Jinho spent the next 2 weeks in his apartment, which was technically their apartment, his and Minjun's, surrounded by the ghosts of their relationship. Minjun's protein powder was still in the kitchen. His terrible abstract art was still on the walls. His shampoo was still in the shower, and every time Jinho smelled it, he felt a Pavlovian urge to both cry and throw something. Dokyun came over every day with food and unsolicited wisdom. You need to get out of this apartment, he said on day 14, stepping over a pile of takeout containers that had formed a small civilization on the living room floor. I'm fine. You're wearing his hoodie. Jinho looked down. He was, in fact, wearing Minjun's oversized gray hoodie. It smelled like his cologne and betrayal. It's comfortable. It has his initials embroidered on the chest. You crossed them out with a Sharpie and wrote Trash Man. That's not fine, Jinho. That's a cry for help in permanent marker. Dokyun had a point. Okay, Jinho said, peeling himself off the couch with the enthusiasm of a sloth on sedatives. What do you suggest? Dokyun grinned. It was the kind of grin that historically preceded terrible ideas. My buddy from college just opened a café. He's looking for help. Part-time, low stress, good coffee, nice people. It'll get you out of the house. Take your mind off things. A café, Jinho repeated flatly. It's called Brutiful, with a B-R-E-W. I hate it already. You start Monday. The café was, annoyingly, actually nice. It was one of those cozy corner shops with exposed brick walls, hanging plants, and furniture that looked like it had been hand-selected by someone with a Pinterest addiction and unlimited funds. Warm lighting, the smell of fresh pastries, soft jazz playing from a speaker shaped like a cat. The whole thing was offensively charming. The owner was Dokyun's college friend, a guy named Yoon Haejin. Yoon Haejin deserves a proper description, because it's important for understanding exactly what Jinho was dealing with. Imagine someone took a romance novel cover model, gave him a barista apron, and then sprinkled in just enough awkward nerdiness to make him approachable. Tall. Taller than Jinho by a good 4 inches, with messy dark hair that looked like he'd just rolled out of bed but in a deliberate way. Sharp jaw, warm brown eyes behind round wire-rimmed glasses, and the kind of easy, lopsided smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He was also, as Jinho would soon learn, an absolute disaster of a human being. You must be Jinho, he said when Jinho walked in on his first day, extending his hand and immediately knocking over a cup of coffee with his elbow. The coffee cascaded off the counter and onto his shoes. He looked down at his shoes, looked back up at Jinho, and smiled like nothing had happened. Happens all the time, he said cheerfully. I've ruined 14 pairs of shoes since we opened. I buy them in bulk now. That's efficient, Jinho said. I'm Haejin. Dokyun told me about your situation. The wedding thing. He said this with the gentle caution of someone defusing a bomb. I just want you to know, no judgment here. This is a safe space. Also, I watched the video, and your cake-eating technique was honestly impressive. Very aggressive. Good fork work. Thank you, Jinho said. Because what else does a person say to that? Anyway, I mostly need help with the front counter. Taking orders, making drinks, being nice to people. Can you be nice to people? Jinho thought about it. Conditionally. Perfect. You're hired. Again. Since you were already hired. This is just a formality. Do you want an apron? The aprons have cats on them. I designed them myself. He held up an apron. It had a cartoon cat holding a coffee cup with the text, "You've got to be kidding me," underneath. Jinho wanted to hate it. He really did. Fine, he said, taking the apron. Here's the thing about Yoon Haejin that Jinho didn't expect. He was impossible to be miserable around, and Jinho tried. He tried to maintain his cloud of heartbroken gloom, his aura of romantic devastation. He had earned that sadness. He had been ranked second in a breakup note. He deserved to wallow. But Haejin made it incredibly difficult. Haejin talked to the plants every morning. Not in a cute, quirky way, in a full conversational way. He'd stand there with his watering can, addressing a fern named Gerald like it was a colleague. "Gerald, you're looking a little droopy today. Rough night? I get it, buddy. The humidity's been inconsistent. I'll move you closer to the window, but you have to promise to stop shedding on the pastry case." The first time Jinho witnessed this, he stared at Haejin for a solid 30 seconds. "Gerald doesn't shed on purpose," Haejin said, noticing the stare. "He has a condition. The fern has a condition. Don't say it like that in front of him. He's sensitive." Jinho felt his mouth twitch. It was the first time his face had attempted a smile in 2 weeks, and the muscles ached from disuse. Over the following days, Jinho learned several things about Haejin. He could make latte art that looked like actual portraits. Customers would order a latte and receive a foam recreation of their own face. It was unsettling and beautiful. He tripped over nothing at least 3 times a day. Just flat ground. No obstacles. He'd be walking, and then suddenly he'd be stumbling, and then he'd catch himself and keep going like gravity was a minor inconvenience. He was terrified of the café's espresso machine, which he had named Brenda. "Brenda's in a mood today," he'd say, eyeing the machine warily. "She steamed milk at my face last Tuesday. I think she knows I considered replacing her." He was, inexplicably and inconveniently, the kindest person Jinho had ever met. When a customer was rude to Jinho, which happened on day 3, when a woman complained that her oat milk latte tasted too oaty, Haejin appeared at his side like a bespectacled guardian angel and said, with the most polite smile imaginable, "I'm so sorry about that, ma'am. We actually source our oats from oats, so there is a chance of oat flavor. Can I offer you a refund and a cookie shaped like an apology?" The woman was so confused she just took the cookie and left. "Does that happen a lot?" Jinho asked. "The rudeness or the cookie thing?" "Both. Yes and yes. I have a whole system. Low-level rudeness gets a cookie. Medium rudeness gets a cookie and a compliment. High-level rudeness gets a cookie, a compliment, and I make their drink so absurdly, overwhelmingly perfect that they feel guilty about being mean. Kill them with kindness. And sugar. That's diabolical. Thank you. I minored in psychology. By the end of his first week, something terrible had happened. Jinho had started looking forward to going to work. It was a rainy Thursday when the incident happened. Jinho was behind the counter, wiping down the espresso machine. Brenda, who had behaved herself all day, bless her. When the door chimed and 2 men walked in, he recognized one of them instantly, Lee Sang-hyuk, Minjun's best friend. The same Lee Sang-hyuk who had given a speech at the engagement party about true love and destiny, and had apparently known the entire time that Minjun was still texting Kevin. And next to Sang-hyuk, holding his hand, laughing at something he'd said, Minjun, Jinho's ex-fiancé, the runway groom himself, the man who had ranked Jinho second via wedding program. He looked good. That was the worst part. He looked good in that effortless way of his, wearing a cashmere sweater and a scarf and the kind of carefree expression that suggested his conscience was entirely untroubled. They hadn't seen Jinho yet. They were heading toward table 7, near the window, like 2 people who definitely had not destroyed someone's life and self-worth less than a month ago. Jinho's hands started shaking. His vision tunneled. Every emotion he'd been suppressing hit him like a freight train made of feelings. And then Haejin was there. Nobody knew how he materialized so fast. 1 second he was in the back room doing inventory. The next he was standing right beside Jinho, close enough that his shoulder brushed his. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice low. "You look like you've seen a ghost. Or a health inspector." Both equally terrifying. "Table 7, Jinho managed. "That's him. That's Minjun." Haejin's eyes widened behind his glasses. He looked at table 7. He looked back at Jinho. "The wedding guy? The cake video guy? He's here. He's here. In my café? In your café." Haejin's expression did something Jinho had never seen before. His usual gentle warmth hardened into something steely, something determined. He straightened up to his full height, adjusted his glasses, and said with terrifying calm, "I'll handle table 7. "Haejin, you don't have to. I'm handling it." He marched over. Jinho watched from behind the counter, gripping a dish towel like a lifeline. "Welcome to Brutiful," Haejin said brightly, arriving at their table. "Can I start you off with some drinks?" Minjun looked up and smiled. That smile. The one that used to make Jinho's heart race and now made his blood pressure spike for entirely different reasons. "Sure. I'll have a caramel macchiato, and he'll have—" "Actually," Haejin interrupted, still smiling. "Before I take your order, I just want to make sure. You're not planning to leave before your drink arrives, are you?" Maybe through a window. It's just that we've had issues with that. People committing to a drink order and then abandoning it for an old drink they had back in college. The table went silent. Minjun blinked. I'm sorry. No need to apologize. Just checking. Commitment can be tricky for some people. Anyway, caramel macchiato. Great choice. Very loyal drink. Sticks with you till the end. Jinho watched Minjun's face cycle through confusion, suspicion, and then, as he glanced toward the counter and saw Jinho standing there, pure, unadulterated horror. Jinho? He breathed. Hi, Minjun, Jinho said, with a wave so awkward it should have been classified as a war crime. What followed was the most uncomfortable 4 minutes of human interaction ever recorded. Minjun tried to explain. Sang-hyuk tried to become invisible. And Haejin stood there the entire time, holding his notepad, smiling pleasantly, like a customer service angel of death. I was going to call you, Minjun said, his face red. It's been 3 weeks, Jinho said. I was going to call you eventually. After what? You and Kevin celebrated your anniversary. Kevin and I are taking things slow. You left your wedding. That's not slow. That's the opposite of slow. That's the fastest possible version of events. Olympic sprinters saw what you did and took notes. Haejin, who was still standing there, let out a small snort. He covered it with a cough. Minjun looked wounded. I said I was sorry in the note. The note where you called me your second favorite person? I meant it as a compliment. Second is still really high. Second is not high. Second is literally the first loser. The entire cafe had gone quiet. Every customer was watching. Someone in the corner was definitely recording. Jinho was going to go viral again. #CakeWidow2, Electric Boogaloo. And then Haejin did something unexpected. He put his hand on Jinho's shoulder, gently, steadily, and turned to Minjun with the most serene expression ever seen on a human face. Sir, he said, I think your drinks are going to be on the house today, because honestly, it takes real courage to walk into the cafe where your ex-fiancé works, the one you abandoned at the altar, and order a caramel macchiato like nothing happened. That's a level of audacity I almost respect. Almost. He placed 2 cookies on the table. These are apology cookies. They're not from us to you. They're from you to the universe. Please take a moment to reflect. Then he turned, guided Jinho into the back room with his hand still on his shoulder, and closed the door behind them. Jinho sat on a flour sack and put his head in his hands. I'm sorry, he mumbled. I made a scene. In your cafe. I'm the worst employee ever. Are you kidding? Haejin said, sitting on a stack of napkin boxes across from him. That was the most exciting thing that's happened here since Brenda attacked me. Also, you were completely right. Second is the first loser. That line was poetry. Jinho looked up. Haejin was smiling at him. Not with pity, not with awkwardness, but with genuine warmth. Like he was proud of Jinho for standing up for himself, even if he'd done it at maximum volume in a public establishment. For what it's worth, Haejin said quietly, anyone who would rank you second is an idiot. Something shifted in Jinho's chest. A small tectonic movement, barely perceptible, like the first crack in ice at the end of winter. You barely know me, Jinho said. I know you memorized every regular's order in 3 days. I know you rearranged the pastry case so it looks twice as good without anyone asking. I know you talk to Gerald when you think no one's listening. And I know that you brought an extra umbrella on Tuesday because you heard on the news it might rain and you didn't want me to get wet walking to my car. He pushed his glasses up his nose. I know enough. Jinho stared at him. Haejin stared back. Then the flour sack Jinho was sitting on split open, and he disappeared into a cloud of all-purpose flour like a magician's worst trick. OHNO! Haejin lunged forward to help him, tripped over the napkin boxes, and crashed directly into Jinho. They both went down in an avalanche of flour, napkins, and tangled limbs. They lay there on the backroom floor, covered head to toe in white powder, looking like 2 ghosts who had made poor life choices. And then Jinho laughed. For the first time since the wedding, he genuinely, fully, uncontrollably laughed. It started small and then erupted, shaking his whole flower-covered body. And Haejin started laughing too, his glasses crooked, flower in his hair, his shoulder pressed against Jinho's. They laughed until they couldn't breathe. When they finally stopped, they were lying side by side on the floor, staring at the ceiling, gasping. "I think Minjun left," Haejin said. "Good. He didn't take the apology cookies. His loss." It took him exactly 11 more days to realize he was falling for Yoon Haejin. In his defense, he was emotionally compromised. His heart had recently been through a paper shredder. He wasn't exactly operating at full romantic capacity. But the signs were there. Sign 1. He started arriving at the café 30 minutes early just to watch Haejin do his morning routine. Talking to Gerald, negotiating with Brenda, tripping over the welcome mat with the consistency of a man who had a personal vendetta against flat surfaces. Sign 2. When Haejin smiled at him, Jinho's brain produced a sound not unlike a dial-up internet connection. Just static. No thoughts. Sign 3. He made Haejin a latte and spent 20 minutes trying to get the foam art to look like his face. It looked more like a startled potato, but the intention was there. Sign 4. Dokyeon took one look at Jinho during their weekly dinner and said, "Oh no, you like him." "I don't like him," Jinho said, too quickly. "You're blushing. I'm warm. It's November. It's a warm November." "Jinho, you just described his laugh to me as what sunshine would sound like if sunshine had a really nice voice and wore glasses. That's not a casual observation. That's a confession." Jinho put his face in his hands for the second time in 2 weeks. "I can't like him," he groaned. "I just got left at the altar. I'm emotionally unavailable. I'm a meme, Dokyeon. A meme. Memes deserve love too. I'm being serious. So am I." "Look, Jinho." Dokyeon leaned forward, his expression unusually earnest. "Minjun was wrong for you. He was always wrong for you. You spent 3 years trying to be the person he wanted instead of the person you are. Haejin likes the person you are. Even I can see that, and I have the emotional intelligence of a brick. Don't insult bricks like that. Go tell him how you feel." "Absolutely not." "Why?" "Because what if he doesn't feel the same way? What if I ruin the only good thing in my life right now? What if I'm just projecting my emotional needs onto the first kind person I've met, and I confuse gratitude for attraction, and I end up humiliating myself again, and this time there's no cake to stress eat?" Dokyeon stared at him. "Are you done?" "Yes." "Cool. Now go tell him how you feel." Jinho didn't go tell him. Not right away. Instead, he spent 3 days being painfully, obviously, ridiculously awkward around Haejin, which was basically his version of flirting. He dropped things when Haejin walked by. He forgot how words worked mid-sentence. He once handed a customer an empty cup. No coffee, just the cup. Because Haejin had laughed at something and Jinho's brain left his body. On day 3 of his awkwardness festival, Haejin cornered him after closing. "Okay," Haejin said, leaning against the counter with his arms crossed. Flour dusted his forearms. His glasses were slightly fogged from the steam. He looked like a librarian who moonlighted as a model, and it was deeply unfair. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing," Jinho said, aggressively wiping a table that was already clean. "You gave Mr. Park a latte with help written in the foam today. That was an artistic choice." Jinho, the way Haejin said his name, soft, patient, a little amused, made Jinho's heart perform an acrobatic routine that would have scored well at the Olympics. "I'm fine," Jinho insisted. "Everything's fine. I'm not having feelings. Especially not for you. That would be crazy, and premature, and terrifying. And," he stopped wiping. "I'm making it weird, aren't I?" "Little bit." "Cool. Great. I'm going to go talk to Gerald." He marched over to the fern. This was his life now, seeking emotional counsel from a houseplant. "Gerald," he whispered, "I'm in love with your dad and I don't know what to do about it." "Gerald can't help you," said Haejin's voice from directly behind him. "But I might be able to." Jinho spun around. Haejin was right there, close enough that Jinho could count the flower specks on his cheekbone. Close enough that he could see the little scar on Haejin's jaw and the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he was trying not to smile. "You heard that," Jinho said. "I heard that. All of it. The in love part especially." Jinho's face was so hot he could have steamed milk with it. Brenda would have been obsolete. "Listen," he started, launching into the speech he hadn't prepared. "I know the timing is terrible. I know I'm a walking disaster with emotional baggage and a viral cake video. I know you're my boss and this is inappropriate, and I've only known you for a month and I'm probably just Jinho, lonely and confused and rebounding, and I don't want to ruin what we have because this job and this cafe, and you are the only things keeping me sane right now. And if I mess this up, I'll have nothing except Gerald, and Gerald has a condition." "Jinho." "What?" Haejin took off his glasses, cleaned them on his apron, and put them back on. It was the most deliberate, calm thing Jinho had ever seen a human do while another human was having a meltdown in front of them. "I've been trying to figure out how to ask you out for 2 weeks, Haejin said. "I rehearsed a speech in the walk-in freezer. I practiced on Gerald. I even asked Brenda for advice, and she just hissed steam at me, which I took as encouragement. You? What? I like you, Jinho. I've liked you since you walked in here looking like someone had canceled your Netflix subscription and your birthday at the same time. I like that you're grumpy in the mornings. I like that you alphabetized my syrup collection without asking. I like that you yelled at your ex-fiancé about the mathematics of ranking systems. I like you, the actual you, not a second-place version. The first place, only place, entire podium version." Jinho's eyes were burning. "From the emotions, not the flower. Okay, maybe a little from the flower. That's the best thing anyone has ever said to me," he whispered. Yeah. Better than you'll always be my second favorite person? Significantly better than that, yes." Haejin laughed, that sunshine laugh. And then he reached out and brushed flour off Jinho's cheek with his thumb. And the touch was so gentle that Jinho forgot how to breathe, which was becoming a concerning pattern. "Can I kiss you?" Haejin asked. "If you trip and fall before you get the chance, I swear to." Haejin kissed him. It was soft and warm and tasted like coffee and the cinnamon sugar he'd been sprinkling on pastries all afternoon. His hand cupped Jinho's jaw, and Jinho's grabbed the front of Haejin's ridiculous cat apron, and somewhere behind them, Gerald rustled his leaves in what could only be described as approval. When they pulled apart, they were both grinning like idiots. "So," Haejin said, "does this mean I have to fire you? I feel like there are HR concerns." "You don't have an HR department. Gerald is HR. Gerald is a fern. A fern with a condition. Don't be insensitive." Jinho kissed him again because Haejin was ridiculous and wonderful and he thought Jinho was first place, and because for the first time in a long time, getting left at the altar was starting to feel like the best thing that had ever happened to him. Epilogue. 1 year later, the cafe was closed for a private event. Not a wedding, slow down, they weren't those gays, but an anniversary party. 1 year since Jinho had walked into Brutiful with a broken heart and walked out with a boyfriend who talked to plants and had a nemesis relationship with an espresso machine. Dokyun gave a toast. "To Jinho," he said, raising his glass, "who turned a viral humiliation into the best love story I've ever witnessed. And to Haejin, who somehow fell in love with a man whose greatest romantic gesture was stress-eating an entire tier of wedding cake on camera." "It was emotional eating," Jinho corrected. "It was 4 pounds of buttercream in 9 minutes. That's not emotional. That's athletic." Everyone laughed. Haejin squeezed Jinho's hand under the table. Later, after the guests had thinned and the cafe was quiet, Haejin and Jinho stood at the counter sharing the last slice of a cake that was notably not shaped like the Eiffel Tower. It was a simple chocolate cake. 1 tier. No monument. No metaphor. Just cake. "Hey!" Haejin said, nudging Jinho with his elbow. Minjun posted on Instagram. He and Kevin broke up. Jinho looked at him. Seriously. Apparently Kevin didn't understand him on a spiritual level as much as he thought. Who could have predicted? "That's sad," Jinho said, and was surprised to find that he meant it. Not because he still had feelings for Minjun. That ship had sailed, sunk, and been made into a cautionary documentary. But because everyone deserves to find their person, even people who make terrible decisions involving bathroom windows and Cartier cufflinks. "You're too nice," Haejin said. "I learned from the best. And also from Gerald." Haejin smiled, flower on his jaw, glasses crooked. The most beautiful disaster Jinho had ever seen. "I love you," Haejin said. Like it was simple, like it was easy, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "I love you too," Jinho said. First place, only place, entire podium. Haejin kissed his forehead. Jinho stole the last bite of cake. Brenda hissed steam from across the room, and somewhere in the corner, Gerald's leaves rustled gently in a draft that may or may not have existed. And for the first time in his life, Park Jinho wasn't anyone's second favorite anything. He was exactly where he was supposed to be. The end.